Welcome to The Independent Workforce, the podcast where we explore the now and the future of work through the lens of temporary employment, such as freelancers, contractors, fractional experts, you name it. Here we speak with CEOs, recruiters, founders, and industry leaders about how they work with independent talent, the wins, the challenges, and the lessons learned. My name is Yurii. I'm growing the freelance market at FreelancerMap, an international platform that's been connecting top independent professionals with companies for over 20 years. And my guest is Ray Culver, a global strategist in the talent and contingent workforce space with over 30 years of experience in staffing, workforce strategy, and talent marketplaces, starting with leadership roles at Randstad, Manpower, and Scott Exchange, to now being a founder and CEO of CWsolutions Group, helping staffing firms and HR tech companies design go-to-market strategies across the US and Europe, and also a managing director for the Americas at TALiNT Partners, connecting leaders across the global talent ecosystem. So, welcome, Ray.
Hey, Yurii, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great. I feel like you were working in this staff and recruiting space like so much longer than I was, not as I was alive,
When you were
but
when you were a child.
I was a child. I didn't even know that the workforce exists. So I just knew that cartoons exist, some toys exist, but I haven't even thought about all this stuff that we are working right now about. And you've been in this industry for decades, and I'm curious, where exactly did you start working with the independent talent, and why?
Yeah, and again, just real quick, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to have this conversation, so I appreciate it. I have been in the industry for probably 30 plus years. Throughout my career, I was always working with, we'll call it the different parts of the staffing industry, whether it was global sales, whether it was large, complex national accounts, whether it was MSP programs. So as freelance and independent workforces continue to make momentum, that just kind of came into my world. When I left Manpower Group and started my own consulting firm, that's really when I started working a good bit with freelancers, independent contractors, and a lot of it was advising marketplaces and advising founders on the tech side who were coming into market. So yeah, that's kind of where that was my entry point. You always heard, especially here in the US, because I am Southern California based, you always heard about independent contractors and, back in the day, the legal issues that were around ICs. That was the biggest thing that people talked about. So it's good to see that some of that's kind of, gone away, and we're starting to talk about the true benefits of freelancers and independents.
Some things are went away and some things are coming back. So it's always like this
Or like one thing
cycle.
pops down, the other thing pops up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And also there are so many different words: freelancers, contractors, independent talent, contingent workforce, flexible talent. What is your favorite?
I like freelancers. I just think that's it. It's easy. Um, yeah, that's my choice. So if we're gonna pick a word to go with for this call, let's pick freelancer. Run with it.
When you speak to HR leaders or to company leaders and people outside this kind of like independent talent bubble,
Yeah.
what do they feel? What do they tell you when you use the word freelancers with them?
I think it's gotten more and more to where they are accepting of that type of talent. And when I say accepting of, just open to understanding it better. I think there's still some concerns when we talked about compliance, and legalities, and if there were to be something happen, like where does the compliance sit and who owns it and just those types of things. So I think it's just we have to continue educating the hiring leaders and the executives on what is a freelancer, how could you utilize that talent, because again, incredible talent who has decided to either leave the workforce or, after COVID here in the US, a lot of the workforce left the talent. There were a lot of companies who did rifts and things like that. So at that point, this incredible talent was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I've got to pay my mortgage. I've got to put food on the table for our family. My advice to so many of them were like, hang a shingle. You know what I mean? You have the most incredible experience. You have done so much in your career, and you are so valuable to the ecosystem. Go be a freelancer. Start your own thing. So it's been fun to watch people who started back then and people who stuck with it, to see them really flourishing these days.
Sometimes it's scary as shit to start the career when you were
Gary, oh
working
my
for
gosh.
companies for
Yeah.
ages.
Because you
Yeah.
leave, potentially, if you are leaving and you make the choice and the choice is not made for you, you're leaving a full-time paycheck where you know you're going to get it every 2 weeks. You're leaving benefits, you're leaving things like that to go out on your own. That's the exciting part. I think the scary part is, you're constantly, hunting for your next opportunity. Um, so again, exciting, but if you're not a salesperson, that can be the scary part. If you don't like selling yourself, that's that's a scary thing to have to do, knowing that you have to do it to make a paycheck.
Like it's overall in the world, whenever you are doing whatever you're doing, whenever, it's always a question like how to kind of like sell what you're doing in a
Yeah.
good way. I'm not telling to, pitch something that nobody cares about, but exactly how to
Mhm.
speak about your values, speak about what you bring to the table, speak about your qualifications. And sometimes it's not that easy, especially for freelancers. But we were talking, you told a little bit about concerns, challenges, sometimes even maybe blockers. So, what currently stops companies from utilizing this independent talent?
Yeah, I mean, I go back to, I really think a lot of it is just not understanding, and you mentioned this earlier as we were chatting, not understanding how do you leverage a freelancer? Do they sit on site? Do they have to sit on site? Do they sit on my payroll? That should be for you and me, that's an easy, everybody should know that. A lot of people who've never utilized them, they don't know that. So I think a lot of it is just education, um, understanding where does where do things sit if something were to happen? And these days, utilizing freelancers so much in the IT and tech space, now there's IP. There's so many things that a company's having to think about and bring into the equation. So I think a lot of it is just the unknown. That's the biggest thing that they're afraid of.
What they have to know, what companies have to know to start working with freelancers?
I think they have to know a few things. One is, this is my opinion, of course, um, it's getting to the point where it's not going to be a choice. Like, I mean, the talent is choosing to work this way. So a hiring leader, if you're blocking that off, you're blocking off an incredible funnel of talent. And again, the talent is going that way. So it's like you kind of have to figure out how to look at this because talent is choosing to work that way. Um, B, there are incredible consultants out there who can help to advise companies on how to really leverage the freelance space. There's incredible technologies out there who can help them from a compliance perspective to make sure that everything is truly buttoned up for them. So I think there's resources out there that they can utilize to bring in that freelance workforce and feel totally safe and secure that they're perfectly fine.
In one of the previous episodes, Danny Gall, CEO of Pro Teams, told this interesting thing that it's hard to find people inside the organization who are ready to start implementing these processes of working with independent talent because they are getting their paychecks. Why should they care? They are doing what they are doing, and it's like bringing some external talent. It's a little bit of a challenge. It's something that you have to work with, and you don't really know if it will work well or not. So, how to find, like from your perspective, from your experience, how to identify, how to find these people who are ready to bring these talents into their companies?
Again, this is something that you and I talked about a bit earlier, but when you look at the whole shift from roles-based to skills-based, when you find companies who are, I consider that being progressive. I mean, if you're really starting to look at and understand how are the different ways that should be looking at talent and the jobs and things like that. So identifying those types of companies, the ones who are kind of pushing the envelope a bit, thinking about jobs a different way, thinking about talent a different way. If a company has a extended workforce, so a contingent workforce program, that's also someone who you could start to really have a conversation with around freelancers as an additional talent channel. I strongly believe that the company who's going to win is the one who completely embraces every talent channel out there, full time, contingent, freelancers, gigs, whatever you want to call it, just every possible thing that's out there. To me, that's the company that's going to win.
A lot when you are speaking to corporates, especially, they have a little bit of decision making process inside. And if you don't know who is responsible, like what department is responsible, it will never happen. So from your experience, who is responsible for contingent workforce program? Is it HR? Is it procurement? Is it management? Like who has to say the word first?
This is such a hot topic right now. And we actually hosted a workshop last week in New York, and this was one specific panel set was around who owns, where decisions sit. I think you're seeing the contingent workforce leadership move more towards talent acquisition. It's historically been procurement because, very cost driven, very contract driven, that type of thing. But companies are continuing to realize that this is talent we're talking about, whether it's a contingent worker, whether it's a full-time worker, whatever it is. So moving towards TA, we've asked many TA leaders, where should it sit? And both them and procurement professionals say it should sit on a kind of a co-joined team because each of those brings a true specialization. And when you can have them working together and owning, the pieces that will make the most sense, that's kind of the ideal situation. It's not happening, but it's the ideal situation.
It's not happening exactly. When I heard the word co-joining team, it's usually like if no one owns it, if it's like co-joining, if there is no specific person who owns it, nobody owns it. So it's like the hardest part. How to create these teams?
It's so fun. Let me think about who it was. There was someone last week, it was a partner of ours, who mentioned that they had a client who had created a C-suite officer who sat on top of kind of the contingent workforce or the extended workforce. And everything reported into this person. So this had dotted lines to certain TA functions, certain contingent workforce functions, certain procurement functions. So to me, if companies are starting to create roles like that, they're starting to understand exactly what you just said. There has to be an owner, and it's got to really report into somewhere because it's such a huge ticket item. So given it C-suite leadership, that's it's a thing of the future. But when you start to see one or two or three companies doing it, there's potentially a movement there.
Okay, so now we need a little bit of motivation to those people who are not working with. So you've been in this market for like long time, and you definitely see what is changing. And you already touched a little bit here and there about the growing of the independent talent market workforce. So from your perspective, how has this workforce market evolved in the past few years?
I go back to a statement I made a few minutes ago. I think it's evolved because the worker is choosing to work this way. And if the worker is choosing to work this way, you have no choice but to evolve. I mean, it has no choice but to go somewhere because many times these freelancers and workers are the ones who have those special skills that you need, the specialist. So to get that skill, to bring them into the organization, the talent wants to work as a freelancer. So either meet them where they are, or you're going to really struggle to find those skills. So I think that's a huge motivation, is that the companies have to follow the talent. And you're seeing more and more talented people choosing to work freelance. So I mean, it's a very, to me, probably it's an oversimplification. But at the end of the day, when a large company is sitting in workforce planning and really looking at the different regions of the world and really going through their skills inventory, their skills planning, thinking about what they're going to need in the next 12, 24, 36, 5 years, 10 years, and looking at the different regions, how are people choosing to work? And is the skill needed either now or in the future? Is it in the market? Is it in the full-time market? Is it predominantly freelance? That should really help to drive your decision. And if you see that it's primarily in that freelance market, so that's where go to external counsel, go to these consultants I mentioned, go to these freelance technologies and let them help you put a program together.
What kind of clients do you typically work with?
Me? Yeah. Many times it is staffing firms. So what I did when I was with Randstad and Manpower Group was build MSP channels. So anywhere that the one of the lines of business supplied into an MSP program fell under my remit. So as I left Manpower, my consulting firm really focuses on helping staffing firms to maximize those different streams of revenue, MSP being one. Freelance has come more and more into the conversation because staffing firms know they're having to figure out how to work with this and how to kind of maneuver through this. The other area that we work with is HR tech. So working with tech platforms could be a marketplace, could be freelance, could be VMS. It could really run the spectrum of different technologies, but working mostly with founders who are looking to either come into market net new, so it's just being born, or they're looking to say go from the ANZ market into the UK market, UK into the US, that type of thing. So it's still going to be a net new product in a certain market, but helping them to figure out where to go, when to go, and how to go.
You mentioned staffing companies, and I feel like they are exactly in the intersection, and they're getting all the backlash from two sides. They're getting negative, they're getting hate from freelancers because they say, "Hey, take all our money and you are not placing us." And also they have like a negative part from company side because they always go there and they are talking about working with freelancers and stuff, and companies don't get in it and they are not getting enough projects and they cannot go back to freelancers and give them projects. So they're kind of like in between two fires. So what should they do? How should they survive in this future of work?
Again, interesting question. This was a topic. Last week we had a workshop that was focused on staffing leaders on one day, and we had a workshop focused on talent leaders the next day. So the earlier question was on the talent leader workshop, and this question came up on the staffing leader workshop. So staffing leaders are thinking about this because this was exactly a question we talked about. Again, if I was advising a client, I would say understand all of the different ways that talent is choosing to work today, whether it is freelance, contractor, whatever. Understand how you engage with those particular groups. So if I am a staffing firm, does it make sense for me to start to kind of pivot and think about perhaps building a technology or doing something, white labeling a technology to be able to work with that freelance group and bring them into, to my type of business where I can introduce them to my clients. So I think it's having the conversation, understanding all the different ways that people are acquiring talent these days, and is that something you can bring into your staffing firm? Because it's the future, because the staffing firm of old is changing rapidly, if not dying a bit. B, it's the way clients are buying. So if they're not going to buy from you, they're going to buy from somewhere. If they're going to buy from an FMS, why wouldn't you somehow white label or do something with an FMS? Try and create it where you're creating stickiness with your client and you're getting closer to the future, which is freelance.
This episode of The Independent Workforce is brought to you by FreelancerMap, the home of freelancing. Whether you are looking to hire top freelance talent fast or a freelancer ready to find your next big project, FreelancerMap connects the right people with the right work. No endless job boards, no guesswork, just direct access to verified experts and opportunities across the globe. Visit freelancermap.com and start building your next success story today. Yeah, I still have this feeling that, especially if we're talking about the end clients, they have this mindset that they should own talent and that they should manage talent, and the talent should sit specifically in their office and do exactly what they tell us and how they tell to do them. And for some reason, once again, the market is changing, maybe not that fast, and companies are still ready to spend, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, up to 6 months, sometimes even more. It depends on like the qualities they are searching for. They're ready to spend all this time to find a talent instead of just going to freelance market and find this talent. Okay, let's best case scenarios. Okay, it can be a few days, but let's be real, up to 2-3 weeks. It's still a huge difference. So how to make this mindset shift from owning, controlling, and managing talent and being ready to spend all this time to find this talent into this market that they can tap immediately and get the person they want?
A couple of things come to mind. One is There are certain companies who are going to get it, and there are certain companies who are not. But there are some companies who are extremely, very traditional based and very much they don't even necessarily believe in an extended workforce. And when you think about it, they don't even necessarily believe in utilizing contractors, which to me that's a very, very traditional firm or company who says we have to bring everybody in full time. That's the only way. Um, so that would be one, just to really understand the company. There are some that having this conversation with some of these companies, you're really wasting your breath. I mean, you're fighting a losing battle. So pick your battles to do that. I also think that picking the companies, picking pilots within, let's say, certain companies or clients where you can find success and find wins, that's what's going to change hearts and minds. Is if you can, find a role or two where a freelancer would be very, very successful, pilot that. Get your client on board, get them to let you do that, and then take that success story and leverage that across the client. Because to me, success is what equals success. If another hiring manager sees that it worked and it was extremely beneficial and all the benefits to it, they're going to be more apt to want to do it than just someone coming in and selling a vision, of something that they've never done before. So smaller pilots, wins, successes, and be prepared to share those successes and sell that.
It's the hardest part to make a pilot, to make the
100%.
first step. And because it seems like that every role is super important and you cannot delegate it. But then the person is ill or the person going to a mother leave or something like that. And then you have to deal with this. You have no
Yeah.
choice. And somehow companies are dealing with this. So how do they know? How can they pick this specific role to delegate? How do they understand that they should delegate specifically this part and not that part?
Um, I think that comes with really understanding what roles make up the project that you're needing done, and like how can that work be done. Some things you do need someone to sit on site. So I mean, some things are like, what, for this particular project, I need my project team to sit on site, work together every single day for whatever reason. So are there roles that don't necessarily have to sit on site? Are there roles that can be much more of that freelance, kind of economy? So understanding that, and then once you understand that, again, I go back to just taking the chance to be able to do a test and see if it works. Some companies are going to do it, some companies are not. Um, if you look at some of the extremely progressive senior leaders on kind of the TA side, and internal, in-house, those are also some of the folks who I would approach. If I was a staffing company or if I was a company who was trying to sell freelance, again, I would look very strategically at the companies who have used it in the past and understand. I'm going to totally make this up. I'm just going to call it ABC Company. Understand ABC Company, understand how it worked and why it worked, understand the success stories, and then look who are the competitors to ABC Company. If it worked at ABC, it's probably going to work at their competitors because they follow the same business models. So it's like, start there. And I'm going to be very strategic in how you're selling this freelance because not everybody's going to buy it. And if you go out trying to sell it as part of your normal bag, you're wasting your time. You're not going to get the results that you want. So you have to be pretty strategic in who you approach.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that go to competitors. I have this experience when there is a staffing company in one country that is like hardly using freelancers and helping their clients to get freelancers. The same company, the same brand in another country, they don't really want even to have the conversation about contingent work. It's so weird. I didn't know that the same brand operates differently in, even if we're talking about the Europe, like different countries of the Europe, like separately different understanding of the contingent
Yeah.
workforce. And it's so weird to me. And then, like going to competitors, you still have to have someone in the team, in the company, like kind of progressive person, someone who, I don't know, reads the news, someone who listens
Yeah.
to podcasts like this, someone who follows people like you and listening to what they are talking and really seeing that it's happening. It's not like some I don't know, like crystal ball, and everyone is like,
Right.
oh, it might be, but it's really happening. People have to know. And to your point, you also told that some companies will never use the extended workforce. Some company will struggle with in this. It reminds me how what happens currently with AI. You see, some companies are hardly investing in the AI, building their own LLM systems inside, and
Yeah.
like millions and millions of dollars put in inside. And some companies are staying somewhere on the side, like, no, 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 we're just looking around. We'll never implement AI. So from your experience of the workforce professional, how can you compare AI adoption and extended workforce adoption?
I think that the extended workforce is much further along than AI, obviously, just because of the number of years. I do see the similarities that you're speaking of, though. I mean, there are so many companies who are just terrified of AI. They're terrified of bringing anything like that into their company. We see it a good bit like in financial services and banking, where they're like, you know what, we've created our own LLM, which many could argue that it's not great because it's only getting what you're teaching it. But they don't want anything going outside of their four walls. So I think the level of apprehension around AI is not near the level of apprehension around the extended workforce. Now, when you start to talk about, and when you start to peel back the extended workforce, because that is contingent workers, that is contractors, that is freelancers. So contingent workers and contractors, there's a lot more comfort with that piece of the extended workforce than there is the freelancer, because the freelancer is still, I don't want to say new, because it's not new, newer. And there's still a lot of kind of areas where, again, I just don't think we as an industry haven't done a great job of educating the client on there are ways to protect everybody involved. There are ways to where everybody um, feels good with the way that this work is getting done. The work getting done itself will be brilliant and beautiful. So it's not concerned about the work. It's the contractual pieces that I think employers just don't, you know, they don't fully understand, and they have legal in their ear, they've got risk in their ear, who are trying to protect the company. So I think that's where we just have to do a better job of educating.
You already told a little bit of inspiring stories of
Mhm.
why they should go into this contingent workforce and why should companies work with freelancers. But let's go a little bit into the scary part. So, what are companies missing if they won't adapt their process for flexible talents? What do they risk?
You risk missing talent. And again, I mean, this is going to be the common thread that you will thread throughout this entire conversation. Talent is choosing to work this way, period. And if you are not open to looking at every possible way that talent is choosing to work these days, you are going to miss out on a lot of really great talent. And, finding talent these days is getting harder and harder and harder anyways. So I don't know why a company would throw up additional roadblocks or additional hurdles, when you're trying to find something that's already getting to be very, very difficult. So I think that's where the talent is going to continue to dictate how they want to work and how the buyers are going to have to buy. I think you're always going to find certain industries or certain sectors where maybe has less adoption. We'll go back to financial services. Within financial services, you might have an IT department who is open to freelancers, but overall, the firm's stance is probably not going to be open armed. We love freelancers, bring them all. Probably not. But that's also a sign of that IT department is following how they know the talent is choosing to work. They have to have the skill. The talent is only saying, I don't want to be full time. I don't want to be, a W-2 contingent worker. I want to be a freelancer. So I think you're going to continue to see that where they're following the way the talent wants to work.
From your assessments, personal, maybe market views,
Yeah.
when this will happen? Like really, that company wants to hire talent. talent is saying like, hey, I want to be a freelancer, and they say them, okay, we'll work with you as a freelancer. Because currently what's happening, companies say, we want to hire you on a full time. Person says, no, I don't want that. Oh, whatever, we'll find another person. So when do you see it's like really, when do you see the companies will see this on the market?
I would hope within the next, I think 12 months, 24 months, I think that's too short. I don't think that's enough of a runway. I would hope within the next 3 to 5 years that companies really start fully embracing, that this is a true option of how you can look at talent, bringing talent into the organization. I think that there are some voices within the industry, thought leaders within this space. I think they need to keep screaming loud, yourself being one. That's also, that breaks down walls. You know what I mean? Like, that continues to have that conversation. I think there has to be large companies who continue to be very progressive in thought and are open to going out on that limb, and understanding and trying it and implementing it and showing that it does work, and it's just a brilliant way of doing it. The freelancers, not necessarily themselves, but whoever is trying to grow the freelance economy, they need to be able to take that and package it up and use it as success stories. So selling it, whether it's you, whether it's, John Younger, whoever within the space, but those types of people have to continue taking those success stories and pushing it out through all their channels where other companies see it and hear it and want to ask questions about it. So I would hope the next 3 to 5 years, I hope, as long as we all keep screaming as we're screaming today.
Let's see. And I also believe that people from companies who are hiring freelancers needs to do that also, because I had a conversation recently with a person from Microsoft, and I was amazed of how amazing system they have inside the Microsoft of working with freelancers. And I didn't know about this. I was on this market for like over 3 years and like and talking to freelancers. And no one told me, hey, by the way, do you know that Microsoft has this amazing program? I didn't know that. Like, why on the earth are you keeping such secrets inside the company? I have no idea. Do you know why they keep this as a secret?
I don't. Now that you say that, if I am Microsoft and I have a really, 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 really incredible thing, do I want to share it with the world?
No.
You know what I mean? That's, if I have so it's one of those things where, I don't know, it's kind of a catch-22, because, Microsoft, if they've really cracked the code and they go external and they start bragging about it, another company's going to be like, well, I'm going to take that and use it myself. So it's like one of those things where, that's a good question.
Competitive advantage you don't want.
Yurii.
Competitive advantage you don't want to share with anyone.
Which is unfortunate, because that type of competitive advantage, that type of success story will truly help to further the freelance economy and the freelancer and the way that way of work. So I don't know, we just need to, continue to think of how can that story be shared and shouted about without, giving away kind of any secrets, that Microsoft obviously has developed, because it's very important. They want to keep, so like, how can you still share the story and get people comfortable with it without feeling like you're giving away a secret sauce?
Yeah. If you could design the perfect system for integrating freelancers into the full-time workforce or the general company workforce, what would it look like?
Yeah. I have always thought, and there's a few out there that have tried to do this, but I have always really thought that the best piece of technology would be one where, if I'm a hiring leader, I go in and I know I have a requisition, a need, something that I need done. And I go through just a series of decision trees. And it pushes me in one direction, whether it's permanent for whatever reason, whether it's a contingent worker for whatever reason, freelancer for whatever reason. So you kind of go through these decision trees. And ultimately, it pushes you into, this would be my recommendation for what it is that you need done. And it really goes in depth on, if you need teams built, part of it could be a contingent, part could be freelancer, consider this, consider that. If the company's open to working with people, and you're getting pretty deep here, but, the strongest area for this skill in the world is going to be in South Africa. Consider going there to find talent. Get to that level of truly giving a hiring leader a global view on what type of worker do I need? Where can I find the best worker? And then how do I engage with that worker? If someone could develop that, to me, that is truly the future of work. And I would I would bend a knee to that. Like that's a rock star right there.
Yeah, I have a strong feeling that we have to do this together because, you know,
How,
everyone would love to see it happening and everyone is waiting for someone else to make it work. And I think
how
that if
cool would
we,
that be though?
yeah, it's always, you know, like everyone, like no one knew how could like the things like LinkedIn or
Yeah,
Facebook or X or whatever, whatever you call the social media, how cool it might be
yeah,
before they created this.
yeah.
So
But if
it's
you think about what I just mentioned, you're incorporating almost like every different piece of the talent ecosystem into one type of a system. It's helping you to decide what type of worker do I need. It's helping almost educate on have you thought about this different work arrangement? And then it's telling you around the world where are the global pockets of the most best talent for these types of roles. So it's like it's kind of tapping into the entire, global talent ecosystem. Again, I know that's a big dream in the sky, but we as we as a world, we have the technology. This can be done. It's just a matter of somebody really buying and doing it.
You know, it's interesting. I had a previous conversation with Yurii Lopez, and he wrote a book about the future of work. And he described a very, very interesting system inside, also including AI, including
Yeah.
flexible workforce, and how you just uh, go to the meeting with your full-time team. You have like 30-minute conversation, then you decide who you need, you make 2 clicks, and then in an hour you already have a conversation with a talent exactly who you need to build this project, and then in 2 hours you already starting working. It looks like a fantasy, but I truly believe that we are moving there. And you know, Ray, I really have so many questions and I wish to have the sky is the limit, but time is the limit. So the final one, what advice would you give to companies just starting to use freelancers and to freelancers entering the market?
I'll start with the second part. So freelancers entering the market. Good for you, first of all. Congratulations. I The market is going in this direction. Um, Stick with it, because I mean, again, I think so. I've seen so many freelancers, consultants who go back into a full-time job because they just can't stomach, the whole having to kind of hunt for your next meal and things like that. So stick with it. If there are pieces of the process that you don't like business development, find maybe a partner. You know what I mean? Like partner up and find someone who does enjoy business development because then you can deliver. So just don't think that it has to be this or it has to be this. Like have conversations with your peers, have conversations with your fellow freelancers, and just stick with it because the freedom is incredible. The stuff that you get to do is so cool. The money can be incredible. So that would be to freelancers. To companies who are just starting to use it, be very open to the talent, be very open to looking at this as a true talent channel. Ask a lot of questions. We touched on this throughout the call. Lean on consultants, lean on people within the industry, maybe at a different company who have utilized this before. Ask questions. There are technologies out there. There's people like yourself. There's a lot of people who are more than happy to answer any questions and help you get through maybe the initial startup. Yeah, just don't stop. I mean, it's the way of the future. You know what I mean? Like if you use a freelancer for position A and it goes well, consider using a freelancer for position B, C, and D. You know what I mean? Like don't stop. Keep the momentum going.
Last but not least, name 2 people I should reach out to talk about the independent workforce.
Yeah, one is Rich Parker. He is the CEO for PlannerNet, based here in the US. They are a freelance marketplace who works with the meeting and event space globally. We've used them in Australia for an event that we did down there. Brilliant. It was just so seamless. So he's a thought leader when it comes to the freelance workforce. Second would be Jeff Nugent. Jeff's been around for as long as I have. I'll be kind. He was one of the founders of People 2.0, and of course he's left 2.0, and he just recently started a tech platform called Independently, which works with freelancers and independent contractors to make sure that they are compliant and that type of thing. So he is a true thought leader within this space. He's in Canada.
No, I promised it to be the last question, but just one question went to my mind right away. What is one question that I should have asked you but didn't?
Gosh. Um, do I have a dog? No.
Do you have a dog?
I do have a dog.
Okay. What kind of a dog?
A pug.
Got
A
it, got
pug
it.
named
I
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Anyway,
I didn't see him on a call, which is very strange, but
I'm surprised you can't hear him snoring down here at my feet.
no, it's just the zoom feature of like, so removing all the
Blocks things out.
yeah, exactly.
No,
Yeah, okay, Ray.
no, I
Thank you.
think no, super quick because that was a serious question you asked. I think asking about what was the one question, where do I see the freelance economy going in the U.S. specifically with me sitting here? I do think that there is an uptick. I think people are starting to understand it more. I think that hiring leaders are starting to push a bit more internally on their leadership. I think that the freelancers and the way that freelancers find the work are getting better at answering legals and risk questions and things like that. So that education that we talked about is starting to happen. So in the US, I think you're seeing an uptick, and I think that will continue to go on.
And I believe that it will go on not just in the US, but in the whole world.
Of course.
And yeah, Ray, thank you so much, first of all, for what you are doing, because it's super important to have people like you are who are being leaders and pushing this contingent workforce freelancers forward. And as you've said, educating companies on getting better and better and better and using this, like using in a good way, but still kind of like
Yeah.
implementing these experts. And thank you so much for painting hopeful future for this niche. And once again, it's a huge pleasure. I was happy to meet you at Freelance Unlocked 2025. Who knows? Maybe see you this year again. And yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for this conversation.
Thanks, Jerry. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
And see you in the freelance world. And for listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Independent Workforce. I hope you've taken one step closer to working smarter with freelance talent. If you enjoy this conversation, subscribe to learn even more and share it with your colleague. And remember, the future of work is now.